Hey folks, Samson Wildman with Wildman's Gun Shop. Today is D-Day plus 76 years and 3 days. Unfortunately, D-Day passed this year without much fanfare due to the state of our union at the moment. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Last year, I think around D-Day plus 1, I did a video on the M1 Garand, the main battle rifle of the U.S. during World War II. Well, something I didn't think about is this little guy. His first cousin, we'll say, the 30 caliber carbine. The 30 caliber carbine actually had 1.1 or 1.2 million units in service in World War II, which means it actually had more guns in World War II, or was more widely represented in World War II than the M1 Garand was. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about this. It was designed in the late 30s, and a lot of people had their hand in that cookie jar, but Winchester was kind of at the helm with it. And some of the people that were helping and made this come to fruition really was a gentleman named Carbine Williams, who Jimmy Stewart actually played in a movie, I believe, by the name of Carbine Williams. Carbine Williams was a felon in the state of North Carolina that just had a penchant for making stuff run, and he was really good at it and was instrumental in this action actually working with the kind of diminutive 30 caliber carbine round, which we'll get into in a minute. Also, Ed Browning had his hand in there, which is the brother of John Moses Browning, who you know I like to talk about here as often as possible because the guy's just a brilliant mind. Anyway, the rifle saw service from 1942 until the late 70s, so it was seen in both the Pacific and European theaters in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and is still being used by a lot of military and militia forces all over the world. It's about 5.5 pounds, and like I said, about 1.2 million of these were manufactured just during World War II. I think total numbers were somewhere 12 or 14 million total made. It's a gas-operated short-stroke piston, and the reason I say that is to say this: the 30 caliber carbine round was the first round that the U.S. military ever fielded that was non-corrosive, so it wouldn't damage that system. The corrosive ammo would just get in here and gum up and really just start to destroy and eat away at the action. It would destroy accuracy and reliability. So you could have grandpa's stash of World War II ammo and it's going to be good for the rest of your life and your grandkids' life because it's non-corrosive as long as you store it properly. But anyway, the 30 caliber carbine was kind of meant, it's little less than 3 foot from tip to tip. And it was meant to be a replacement for a sidearm for people that needed to be unencumbered with a 8.5 pound or 10 pound main battle rifle. So your medics, your radio operators, artillery and mortarmen, stuff like that. And even though I kind of jokingly said this is the M1 Garand's cousin, the only part on this gun that is the same as the M1 Garand is that screw right there in the buttstock. So the M1 Garand actually had 2, one high and one low, and a chamber there for your cleaning kit. But the 30 caliber carbine has kind of a bad reputation for being an unreliable firearm. It actually is a pretty robust and reliable gun. The problem with the 30 caliber carbine lied within its magazines. The magazines were thin sheet metal that were stamped, and they just didn't hold up to the rigors of combat very well. So if you have good reliable magazines, the gun will run just fine. And a lot of the World War II vets, they really liked this gun, and Vietnam vets that used it in special operations and stuff, really kind of sang its praises. And it worked in just about every environment, much like the M1 Garand. Um, Talking about ballistics, a lot of people, other than people saying, hey, this is not a real reliable gun, which we already talked about, they talk about stopping power, which I'm not even going to get into, but for the sake of argument, we'll say stopping power this one time. So a lot of people equate this with a 38 special or 357 round as far as terminal ballistics go. That being said, it's actually closer to 357 Magnum ballistics. It's a straight-walled cartridge firing 115 grain projectile at 1990 feet per second, which is faster than a 357 Magnum with a 4-inch barrel, and everybody kind of uses that as the guide that everything's weighed against as far as quote-unquote stopping power when it comes to handguns. So nobody's trying to get shot with an 18-inch barrel at 1990 feet per second. So anyway, I do think they're reliable with the right magazines. Now, ranges. You're going to be able to hit further faster with this than you are with a handgun, period. Now, this thing comes with adjustable sights. They had two options: the graduated sights that I have, and then just an L-shaped leaf that flipped up and down for 100 and 200, I believe. But mine is marked for 100, and then you move it back, 200, 250, and 300. My 357 lever gun, I don't think you're getting out to 300 meters with. Right gun, right ammunition, and right shooter, I think this thing is capable of hits repeatedly at 2 and 250 probably. I think 300 might be stretching it, but I'm not saying it's impossible. So if we look at the gun, starting at the front, it's just a plain front sight post that we've all seen, and then it has the rabbit ears to protect it. Go down, this one's an early model, Rockola, and it has the bayonet lug. As you continue down, you just have a wood stock and a wood dust cover for the top, or heat shield. On the front of the barrel right here, they'll be marked U.S. Carbine caliber 30 M1. Now, on the back of the receiver is where your serial number is located, and it'll tell you who the manufacturer was. So there were a lot of manufacturers for World War II. They had Inland, which is GM, General Motors. They had IBM, and they had Underwood typewriter, and then my personal one here is a Rockola. I chose Rockola because Rockola made jukeboxes. So for all the GIs serving overseas, to be carrying a firearm that you went everywhere with and trusted your life with, if it was made by Rockola Jukebox Company, I think they kind of liked that. They're not any better or worse than any of the other guns. They were all made to the exact same specifications, where all the parts were interchangeable. And a matter of fact, Marlin, Auto Ordnance, and Union Switch and Signal made a lot of parts, although they never made complete guns that I'm aware of. So you'll see a lot of receivers that are marked Union Switch and Signal, but then as these guns got wore out and rode hard and put up wet, after several thousand rounds, they would go back to the factory or to the armament to be rebuilt. So you don't see guns that are all parts matching very often. If you do, Granddad brought it back and told his CO that it was battlefield lost or something, destroyed or something like that. They're rarer than hen's teeth, and they definitely fetch a premium if you can find them, and even for sale. They're probably in people's private collections, or they're sentimental because it was Granddad's. That being said, you can find these guns on the market for anywhere from $800 to about $1,000, $1,050. Car Arms, in conjunction with Auto Ordnance, is making new ones, and I believe there's another manufacturer out there that's making new ones as well. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but Anyway, also you had a couple different generations here of safeties. So here's your mag release, just a simple push button mag release. These had a 15 round magazine, and we already talked about the magazines were the source of most of the angst that came from reliability issues with these things. They did later make a 30 round magazine, and that was when they made the Select Fire M2s and M3s. And then here is your safety on this one, which is just a switch safety. Down is safe, back is fire. And on the M2s and M3s, this was a cross bolt or a push button safety where you pushed and it was on fire, push it back the other way, it was on safe. Anyway, then you had your cotton web sling, goes down, and you have an oil bottle, just an oiler they called it, and it's just a stick with a screw-on lid and carries maybe half an ounce, at best an ounce worth of lubricant to lube the gun up. But anyway, if you have any questions on the M1 Carbine or just want to leave a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Have a blessed day. Bye.